yummy pumpkin cake pops to take to my son's school tomorrow for Pumpkin Day. I found this really cool pan at the thrift store. That's my rule. I love to buy kitchen gadgets, but I'm going to check the thrift store first before I go pay full price, and it's normally about 20 bucks. I got it for $4. So we're going to bake the pumpkin the pumpkin cake inside of the mold, and we're even going to be able to put it on a stick to dip them in tempered chocolate so they don't melt all over the kids' mouths when they take a bite into it. So stick around and I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so let's get started. I've already got my oven preheated to 335, but we're gonna start with almond butter, okay? This is unsweetened, there's no salt, almond butter. So we're gonna use our handy measuring cup to measure out a half a cup of almond butter. You could use cashew butter, you can use sunflower seed butter. So we're just gonna measure out, and I mentioned in my last video, and it was a recipe I took to my son's school for the apple pie muffins, that I like using the almond butter, cashew butter, instead of the almond flour, because you get a much better consistency. And to me, it really reminds me of, you know, a gluten muffin or cupcake. And sometimes with the almond flour, the texture can be altered. So I really want these kids to enjoy these cake pops, so I'm going to use the almond butter. I measured out. Now I also need a half a cup of pumpkin. So I'm going to just stick in. These are really cool. Got it from Pampered Chef probably 10 years ago. There's a liquid measuring side here, and then there's a solids here, so perfect for mayonnaise, peanut butter, pumpkin, and you don't have to worry about trying to scrape it out of your measuring container. You just press it right out. So we're gonna use some of this canned pumpkin. Now, my latest video is where I roasted pie pumpkin, and I'm not gonna use that. I wanna save that for a different recipe. Make it a little mess here. And also it wasn't really orange, even though it was real pumpkin. So I want to save the roasted pumpkin for another recipe, and I want y'all to help me figure out what I need to make with it. But I'm going to use this pumpkin because it really does give the muffins or the cake pops an orange color, which is awesome. So next we're going to need a teaspoon of cinnamon. Now you could use pumpkin pie spice, but as I've stated before, I'm making it for the kids, like I did my apple pie muffins. And sometimes kids' taste buds are a little different, and I don't want the taste of cloves to not be pleasant to them, even though I love pumpkin pie spice. Cinnamon is just gonna be a nice choice and a safe choice. Okay. So next we're gonna put some baking soda. I'm actually using baking soda and baking powder in this recipe, and I'm going for a half teaspoon because I want to make sure that they rise, because if they don't rise and fill up the entire mold, they're not going to look too good. So I'm going to just give it a little extra leavening here. Okay. So I'm going to add the magic vinegar for my baking soda in just a half a teaspoon. Oh, and the bubbles. I love to see the bubbles. I love it when the kids get to watch me bake and they see the bubbles. Okay, so we need some salt. This almond butter doesn't have salt, so be sure to check to see if yours does. If it does have salt already, do not add extra salt. It will be too salty. But, of course, you need a little salt to enhance the sweetness in most recipes. And I'm also going to use stevia. Okay, if y'all been following me for a while, you know that I like stevia. I do use small amounts of other sweeteners, but I want to make these low carb and taste good. And so I'm going to use about a heaping teaspoon of Stevia Select Stevia. You could use a different brand. You can use another sweetener. If you use another sweetener, you may have to cook it a little longer. I found out if I used sugar or another sugar substitute that people won't realize that sugar is a liquid when baking. So it will contribute more moisture to the recipe, so it will take longer to bake. So just keep that in mind if you decide to use something like Virtue Sweetener from Wheat Free Market, or if you decide to use xylitol or any other sugar substitutes, or even sugar. If you want to just make these gluten-free, you could use sugar, but just cook them a little longer than the 13 minutes or 14 minutes that I'm going to cook them. So I'm also going to do a little bit of honey. This is honey from our honeybees, and I'm not even going to measure. I'm going to do about a tablespoon. What I found that if you sweeten a recipe completely with stevia, there's going to be a bitter aftertaste, and nobody wants a beautiful looking dessert and they taste it and it's bitter, especially a kid, because they're going to let you know about it. So I'm just going to add a little bit of honey, about a tablespoon. Okay, again, you could omit this, you can use a different sweetener, but for me, I want to add this. I want to be safe. It's still going to be low carb, 1 tablespoon, and this is going to make about 14 or 15 cake pops, so it's trivial when it comes to the carbs in the recipe, but the taste is going to be, it's going to make a huge difference in taste, just adding that little extra sweetness to take it over the top. So don't forget the eggs. Okay, I'm going to use 1 whole egg, and of course these are from our chickens. 1 whole egg, and then I'm only going to use an additional egg yolk because I don't want the added moisture from the egg white. Okay, so I'm going to save, I'm not throwing away this egg white. I've actually been working on a angel food cake, and I've probably made 4 or 5 of them, and I'm trying to perfect it, and it tastes delicious. I'm working on the steps. I'm trying to simplify the steps a little bit. So that will be either coming up on my blog or in my next cookbook. I'm not sure if I can make y'all wait that long to see it because it's so good. So I've got all my ingredients. I'm gonna double check. Okay, and you don't need a hand mixer, just use a whisk. And remember, of course, I'm gonna give you a specific recipe of how much stevia and honey I use, but you have to taste the batter yourself. And remember, when you're cooking with stevia, some of the sweetness cooks out. So something that I've done before when I've cooked for the farmer's market or cooking for other people, and I wanted to know what the final product would taste like, I would just take a little bit of the batter, put it in the microwave on a muffin, in a little muffin liner, and cook it for 15 seconds and taste it, and that will give me, that will let me know what it will taste like when it's done. So if you're unsure and you're worried about it's not going to be sweet enough at the end, just pop some in the microwave. If you don't have a microwave, you could just put some on a frying pan, and like you would a small pancake, cook it, taste it, and if you need to adjust the sweetness, add a little more before you put all your cake pops in the oven, because you would hate to get them all out of the oven and you taste them and they're not sweet enough. So, just show you real quick. So, easy batter, simple. I mean, this is so good. So I am going to taste, and I think that's good. The cake pops are going to be a lot of fun. And if I can temper the chocolate, which is something I'm just learning about, which is what you need to do so it won't melt at room temperature, that's going to be really cool to have these dipped in the chocolate. So they're really going to think they're getting a yummy cake pop. So I'm going to take my measurement, my scoop, and this is a tablespoon measurement. And what I found, let's get these out of the way. Make sure you oil the top and the bottom of your pan, because the worst thing would be that your poor cake pops stick. But this is a non-stick coating, but you still want to just, do some oil, coconut oil, and just wipe it in the insides and on top of your cake pop mold. So I'm going to use, I found that even 2 tablespoons of batter made the perfect size, because you don't want them to be too much, because the cake batter will rise out the top, but if they're not big enough, they won't fill up the mold and the cake pops won't look as appetizing. So I just get two level, and again, I've talked before about my scoops. Buy the scoops, they're so convenient. I have 3 sizes. This is a tablespoon. I have one that is 3 tablespoons, and then I have one that's 1/4 of a cup. Kind of skipping around here. So I'm going to do 2 of these, which is 2 tablespoons, and now I want to be about level, because if I do too much, they're gonna come out the top, which wouldn't be bad. You just kind of pull it off. I did that a couple times. But if you don't do it enough, that's when it's bad. Your cake pop won't look as pretty because it won't have the sphere shape. Okay. So let's get this really quick. So really easy batter. I really think my son's class is gonna like these, and maybe I'll include the recipe again like I did for the apple pie muffins, which were a big hit. I heard great things. Some of my son's friends' parents sent me a message and stated they loved it, and they made them get in the kitchen and make the muffins, and that really makes me happy. I love it when kids love to cook and want to cook, and particularly when it's something healthy. And I would say this is pretty healthy, and it tastes good. So it's gluten-free, dairy-free. So if any kids in the class have those allergies, which I know there is another strict gluten-free student in my son's class, they'll get to enjoy this. And that is really, we take that for granted when, you know, some people just avoid gluten because we know it's better for us, but some kids, celiac kids or other severe allergies, they can't have it. I mean, it will make them sick. So when their parents know that their kids can have a yummy treat and get to enjoy things with their classmates, that makes me happy, that makes the parents happy. And you want to talk about a happy kid, they want to be part of what their classmates are doing. Now if you're in the Pensacola area and you want to come sample something and help me do some dishes, we may can work out a trade there. Because man oh man, as many recipes as I've been putting out lately, lots and lots and lots of dishes. Okay, almost finished. Okay, so this is made for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 13 cake pops. So all you do is you put the lid over, and it comes with this really neat, these little rubber attachments and pieces, and that just keeps them connected so they don't shift when you're putting it to the oven. So I'm gonna bake these for about 15 or 16 minutes, and when I open the oven, I'll see that they have some of it, the batter will have risen up, but that also gives me an indicator if they're ready. But I think that about 15, 16 minutes at the 335 really produced a great texture. It didn't over dry them or overcook them, which would dry them out, and they were done in the middle. So I'll be back in about 15 or 16 minutes with the finished result. So I just got our pumpkin cake pops out of the oven, and these little pieces here are not really hot, but this is hot. So I'm just gonna use a fork just to lift it, and then we're gonna get this out of our way. Okay, and you can see on the tops of these, some of them have like a little extra piece, and they simply come off. You can try it. Now I did have one that didn't fully form, but it's still rounded. So it's gonna, we're gonna still have the right number of cake pops, and they need to cool completely. So you don't have to do anything with these. You could just stick a stick on here, let them cool, and you've got a yummy pumpkin cake pop. I am going to let these cool, and then I'm going to temper some chocolate and cover them, and it's going to be so good. So let me just get these out, and you see they come out really easy. I mean, there's no effort. So I'm just going to get these cooling, and these are going to be so good. And I'm happy that I used enough pumpkin. Again, I'm using a half a cup of pumpkin and a half a cup of almond butter, so you actually have a hint of orange in the cake pops. Now, if I had some natural orange food color, I would add a drop, but I don't. But if you wanted to do that, that would make it really cool. I need to keep some of that on hand. So there you have it. We have our pumpkin cake pops. I'm gonna let them cool completely and then actually put them in the refrigerator to cool, and I'll be back and I'm going to show you how we're going to temper chocolate so that these pumpkin cake pops so they won't melt at room temperature. I'll be back in about 20 minutes and show you how to do that. So the cake pops have cooled, and I'm just going to show you how to dip a few of them in chocolate. So I'm using some Enjoy Life dairy-free, of course gluten-free chocolate chips. You could use any chocolate chips. Enjoy Life actually makes a dark variety as well, and I'm just using these trying to be conscious of food allergies because some of the other chocolate chips do have dairy in them. So this is going to be a safe bet, and they taste great. And at the end, I'm going to post links in my blog to all these special ingredients so that you can find them if you can't find them in your store. So I am going to start. So to temper chocolate, I am not a chocolate expert or a candy expert, but tempering chocolate is what we need to do, because right now you see the chocolate chips are hard. You can hold them in your hand. They won't melt, but when you melt the chocolate and then it comes to room temperature again, it really never gets that same hardness. So if you temper the chocolate, which normally you'll see candy makers, they have the marble slab and they're working the chocolate. It's all about the temperature of the chocolate. Well, I looked on YouTube and found an easier method. So out of this 1/2 cup of chocolate chips, we're going to do about 2/3 of it in our bowl, and I'm going to use a microwave to melt this. Now I know some people are anti-microwave, I am too, but I'm going to use it to melt the chocolate, this chocolate. If you don't want to use a microwave, you can also use a double boiler. You want to 30 seconds at a time in the microwave, melt the chocolate, and you want it almost melted, and then we're going to work in these unmelted chocolate, and what that's going to do, that's going to slowly melt the chocolate and not at a high temperature, so it's going to allow the chocolate, when it comes to room temperature, it's going to be nice and hard, which I was really excited when I did this yesterday. It worked, and it didn't, when my son took a bite of the cake pop, it didn't stick on his lips like 2 days prior when my daughter tried another batch of cake pops. When I just dipped them in the chocolate, she was wearing it, and I'll probably put a clip right here. Okay, she's still eating it. Is it good, Anna? Is it yummy? You can see that, yeah, she's wearing chocolate, and I'm sure my son's teachers will appreciate not having to clean chocolate off of 15 kids tomorrow. So I'm going to melt this 30 seconds at a time, stir 30 seconds, and just when it's almost melted, I'm going to come back and stir this in. Okay, that actually only took about 30 seconds, I guess because I used many chocolate chips. So I am going to pour the rest of these chocolate chips into the melted chocolate, and I'm just going to stir. So that's going to, the room temperature chocolate chips is going to cool down the chocolate. They're going to melt, and it's just going to be the perfect temperature or tempered chocolate. And we're going to cross our fingers and hope it works. Okay, I'm just going to keep stirring. And the glass bowl is going to hold some heat as well, but it's not going to get too hot. Okay, so we have melted chocolate, hopefully the right temperature. Okay, just going to put this here. So we're going to take our little sticks. Oh, it actually suggests that you stick a little chocolate on it. It actually kind of acts like glue. You're going to stick it on, I'm going to stick it on this end. Okay, and then we're just going to dip and kind of coat the cake pops. Now I did find yesterday I used like a 70% chocolate, and it was a little thinner, which actually had an advantage. So it made it a little easier to slide on, but this is pretty good. You do want to knock off the excess chocolate, just like that. So the test will be, and I'm just going to place them, oh, I'm going to cover it up a little bit more. So I'm going to just place them on this plate here. Now on the directions, they give you the idea that you can actually stick them on a styrofoam, you know, some of the craft styrofoam, and it'd be like a bouquet. So you would stick it like this, and I'm actually going to try to go today and find some so that the cake pops can be sticking up. So in the meantime though, I'm just gonna put them right there and let them cool. So I'll do one more. So we're gonna take a little bit of the chocolate and kind of acts like a glue. Stick them in there, and then we're just gonna coat. So the test will be, I'm gonna put these in the refrigerator, and when the chocolate completely cools, it should be nice and hard like the outside of a chocolate that you would buy at the store, because that's why those chocolates don't melt in your hand. It's because they've been tempered. I'm just gonna knock that extra off. Okay. And what you could do as well, you could, because once they've hardened, you could buy the little bags, like I've seen this at the dollar store. You could buy the little bags, and you can put the cake pop inside the little clear cellophane bag, put a ribbon on it, and the kid can take them home, so they wouldn't even have to eat it then. But it's really important that the chocolate tempers, because if it doesn't, that's just going to be a big chocolate mess. So I'm going to put these in the refrigerator, say a prayer, and I'll be back to show you our cake pops. Okay, so these just came out of the refrigerator, and let's test them. It's hard chocolate. They taste so good. They're sweet, but not too sweet. The kids are gonna love them. So I did want to mention that, so good. If you don't have these little sticks, you can also use popsicle sticks. Also, after you've dipped the cake pops into the tempered chocolate, be sure to put it on parchment paper or something so that when they cool, the chocolate doesn't stick. But if you really want that round bottom, see, these are not rounded as much as I'd like, because it had to sit on the paper. Be sure to find one of those styrofoam crafts, and I want to come back with one after I pick up the kids, but a little craft styrofoam, and we're going to stick all these up, and you can actually let it dry like that so that you get a perfectly shaped cake pop. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. I know the kids at school tomorrow are going to love it. So be sure to check out my blog. I'm going to put a link down below in the comments, and I'll link the stevia, the cake pop pan, and even the almond butter that I got online, just in case you have problems finding it. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you for watching. Okay, I was kind of in a hurry yesterday trying to finish the pumpkin cake pops because the kids were starting to get noisy. So I wanted to come back and give you some tips that I learned after dipping all the pumpkin cake pops. So first tip, you can buy the pan that I have, and I posted a link on my blog for that pan, or they even make the electric cake pop makers. Looks like a waffle maker, except you make maybe 4 or 5 or 6 cake pops at the same time. Probably takes 3 or 4 minutes, so that's an option. Or you can even use a mini muffin pan, and they may not look like cake pops, but they'll be small and they'll still be good. So I also wanted to share, I was going to dip the cake pops in white chocolate, and I actually was going to make my own white chocolate, as crazy as that sounds, because you really just need cocoa butter and some vanilla and sweetener, but I just ran out of time, so that's why I ended up dipping them in the regular chocolate that I had. But dipping these in white chocolate would be so pretty and be more festive, I guess. You have the contrast of the white outside and the orange inside, so that would have been another great idea you can do. Also, when you are dipping the cake pops into the tempered chocolate, do it in 2 batches. What I found is, of course, chocolate starts to harden, and I probably couldn't have done the 14 cake pops all at one time. So do the half of the cake pops first, and then do your next batch of chocolate, and then dip those. And be sure when you are, if you want to make them pretty, you know, the pretty cake pops, that don't have any flat on the bottom, you're going to need this styrofoam, and I got it for $1 at the Dollar Tree. So maybe get 2 or 3 pieces so that you'll have enough to do all the cake pops. And you just stick the little stick here, so I can do it with one hand. Just sticks right in there. So when you're drying it, you heard our rooster there. So when you're drying the cake pop, it'll dry perfectly, and you just want to make sure there's not too much extra chocolate because it will drip. But if a little drips on the styrofoam, not a big deal. But this is what you're going to need if you want perfectly rounded cake pops for your presentation. So I hope these tips help, and I hope you make this recipe and let me know if you do.